The wind screamed across the frozen wasteland like a living thing trying to tear David apart. He pressed forward through the blizzard, his suit's heater working overtime just to keep him alive. The ice mining operation on Arcturus 7 was supposed to be simple work. Show up, maintain the equipment, collect a paycheck, and go home. Nobody mentioned the temperatures that could freeze metal solid in minutes or the storms that appeared without warning. His scanner beeped weakly through the interference. Something was out there. The signal was faint and getting weaker by the second. David knew he should turn back. Protocol said to never investigate unknown readings during a storm. But something in that dying signal made him keep walking. The escape pod was half buried in a snowdrift. Its hull was cracked open like an egg, frost covering every surface. The markings on the side were nothing David recognized from any galactic database. He ran his gloved hand over the symbols, wondering what kind of ship this came from and how long it had been here. Then he heard it. A tiny sound, barely audible over the wind. A whimper. David dropped to his knees and started digging through the snow with his hands. His suit's gloves weren't made for delicate work, but he didn't care. The sound came again, weaker this time. He dug faster, his breath fogging inside his helmet point. Two small shapes lay curled together in the ice. At first, David thought they were dead. Their bodies were covered in frost, their crystalline fur dim and lifeless. They looked like wolves, but wrong somehow. 6 legs instead of 4. Fur that caught the light and split it into colors even through the layer of ice. David didn't think. He pulled off his thermal blanket and wrapped both creatures inside. They were so cold they felt like stones. He tucked them against his chest and started the long walk back to his habitat unit. The wind fought him every step. His suit's warnings flashed red as the heater struggled to compensate for the loss of the blanket. His core temperature dropped 1 degree, then 2 by the time he reached the airlock. David's hand was shaking so hard he could barely work the controls. He stumbled inside and sealed the door behind him. The habitat's warmth hit him like a wave. He carried the frozen bundle to his work table and carefully unwrapped it. The creatures were still breathing. Barely. David grabbed everything he could find. The equipment heater from his toolkit, extra blankets from his bunk, the emergency medical kit that was supposed to be for humans but might work on aliens. He set up a makeshift recovery station and placed both creatures under the heater. For an hour, nothing happened. David sat and watched them, wondering if he'd just prolonged their deaths instead of preventing them. Then one of them twitched. Its crystalline fur began to glow, faint but growing stronger. The other one stirred moments later. David held his breath as their eyes opened. They were violet, deep and intelligent. The creatures looked around in panic, then focused on him. The larger one bared its teeth and made a hissing sound. Sharp fangs gleamed in the light. "Easy," David said softly. "You're safe here. I'm not going to hurt you." They didn't understand his words, but something in his tone made them hesitate. David moved slowly, reaching for the nutrient paste he used for emergency rations. He mixed it with water until it was thin enough to drink, then held it out. The creatures watched him with suspicious eyes. David set the bowl down and backed away. Minutes passed. Finally, the smaller one crept forward and licked at the mixture. Its companion followed. They drank carefully at first, then desperately, as if they hadn't eaten in days. David smiled. He'd grown up in Earth's Arctic regions, where helping someone in the cold wasn't a choice, it was survival law. These creatures might be alien, but cold was cold, and hunger was hunger. "I'll call you North," he said, pointing to the larger one. "And you're South." The smaller creature tilted its head as if considering the name. Over the next few hours, David watched them recover. Their fur grew brighter, the crystalline structure catching light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. They were beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. He found himself talking to them, explaining where they were and what had happened. They listened with an intensity that suggested they understood more than they should. Night fell on Arcturus 7. The eternal darkness of the frozen moon settled over everything. David was cleaning up the medical supplies when his long-range scanner began to ping. He glanced at the screen and froze. Hundreds of contacts. Maybe thousands. They were appearing at the edge of scanner range. moving steadily toward his position in a coordinated pattern that spoke of intelligence and purpose. North and south suddenly went rigid. Their fur blazed with light, so bright David had to shield his eyes. They pressed against the window, making sounds he'd never heard before. Not quite howls, not quite songs. Something between the two that vibrated in his bones. David pulled up the visual feed from his external cameras. The screen filled with shapes moving through the darkness. Large shapes, much larger than the two pups in his habitat. Their crystalline fur created a river of light flowing across the frozen landscape, the horizon filled with them. An army of the wolf creatures, their eyes glowing in the dark as they surrounded his habitat in perfect formation. David's hand moved to the emergency beacon, then stopped. North and south weren't afraid anymore. They were excited, their whole bodies trembling with anticipation. Whatever was coming, these creatures knew them that he'd made first contact. Now he just had to survive it. Dawn broke over Arcturus, 7 in shades of blue and purple. David hadn't slept. He'd spent the entire night watching the creatures outside through his cameras, and they'd spent the entire night watching him back. They sat in perfect stillness, hundreds of them forming concentric circles around his habitat. Waiting, North and South pressed their faces against the window, their breath fogging the glass. They made soft sounds deep in their throats, a mixture of longing and uncertainty. David could see them struggling between fear and recognition, that he checked his systems for the 10th time. The blizzard had damaged his communications antenna beyond quick repair. No way to call for help. No way to report what was happening. He was alone with 2 alien pups and an army of their relatives outside his door. The adult creatures were massive. Through the cameras, David estimated they stood nearly 8 feet tall at the shoulder. Their 6 legs gave them a strange, flowing gait. The crystalline fur that covered their bodies caught the dawn light and transformed it into cascading rainbows that danced across the ice. They were predators. Everything about their build screamed apex hunter, and they were waiting for him to make a decision. David stared at his environmental suit hanging by the airlock. Every survival instinct told him to stay inside, to wait for rescue, to let someone else handle this. But he looked at North and South, saw how they yearned to go outside, and knew what he had to do. Well, he said aloud, if they wanted to kill me, they could have broken through these walls hours ago. He sealed his suit and checked the oxygen supply. North and South watched him with intelligent eyes as he wrapped them carefully in thermal blankets. They didn't resist when he picked them up. They trusted him. The airlock cycled open. Cold air rushed in, and with it came a smell like ozone and frost. David stepped outside, his boots crunching on the ice. The wall of creatures before him tensed. Every single one of them focused on him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. He walked forward slowly, holding the pups out in front of him. His heart hammered so hard he could hear it over his breathing. 20 steps. 30. The nearest creatures were only meters away now. He could see their individual features. Scars on some, missing patches of fur on others. These were survivors, battle-tested and dangerous. The largest one stepped forward from the pack. Its fur was darker than the others, with streaks of silver running through it. One of its eyes was clouded with age, but the other burned with fierce intelligence. This was clearly the leader. David stopped walking. He had no weapons, no way to defend himself if this went wrong. He just had 2 shivering pups in his arms and a desperate hope that compassion meant something beyond Earth. I found them in the storm, David said, knowing they couldn't understand. They were dying. I just wanted to help. The pack leader approached until they were face to face. It was enormous up close. Its breath steamed in the cold air, fogging David's visor. It lowered its head and sniffed the pups. Then David, its nose pressing against his helmet hard enough to push him back a step. David's arms shook. He gently knelt and set the pups down in the snow between himself and the leader. North and South looked up at him with what he could have sworn was confusion. Then they looked at their pack and took hesitant steps forward. The leader made a sound, low and rumbling, that resonated through David's suit. Other members of the pack moved closer. They surrounded the pups, touching them with their noses, making gentle sounds. North and South disappeared into a sea of crystalline fur and concerned relatives. David started to back away. This was it. He'd returned them. Mission accomplished. Time to retreat to safety. But the pack didn't let him leave. They parted, creating a path, and several creatures came forward, carrying something wrapped in what looked like bioluminescent webbing. They placed it at David's feet with care, then stepped back. That IT was clearly a gift. Some kind of device, smooth and dark with lights pulsing beneath its surface. Technology far beyond what David had seen before. He picked it up carefully. The moment his gloved hands touched it, the device came alive. Lights swirled across its surface, and a holographic interface materialized in the air. Symbols appeared, then shifted, then changed into something David recognized. Basic human script. Translator, he breathed. The pack leader's thoughts began to appear as text and hologram. You returned our young. David nodded, not sure if the gesture meant anything to them. More text appeared. You fed them, warmed them, protected them. This is not known among the Starwalkers. Starwalkers? David asked. Those who travel the void. We have met many kinds. None acted as you did. Most would have kept them, sold them, let them die. The leader moved closer. Why did you save them? David thought about how to answer, how to explain something that seemed so obvious to him. Because they needed help. Because leaving them would have been wrong. The hologram went silent for a moment. David could see the pack communicating with each other through sounds too subtle for his suit to pick up. Finally, more text appeared. We are Karathi. We do not trust easily. The galaxy taught us the cold hearts of others. But you have shown something different. Something we did not believe existed in Starwalkers. What's that? David asked. Kindness without price. North and South pushed through the crowd of adults and ran to David. They pressed against his legs, looking up at him. The pack leader watched this with what David swore was surprise. They have chosen, the text read. They wish to stay with you. This is unusual, but these are unusual times. David looked around at the hundreds of creatures surrounding him. What happens now? The leader's response made David's blood run cold and his heart sore at the same time. Now, human, we learn if your kind deserves the friendship of the Karathi. And you have 3 days to prove it before your people arrive with weapons. 3 days. David sat in his habitat with the translator device on his work table, watching the countdown timer on his systems. In 72 hours, corporate security would arrive. They'd sent the automated message before the antenna died. Standard protocol when communications went dark. Send armed response. First Hunter, as the pack leader called himself, lay outside the habitat with a dozen other Karathi. North and South slept near David's feet, exhausted from playing with their relatives. Through the window, David could see more Karathi spreading across the frozen landscape, setting up what looked like a temporary camp. The translator chimed. You are troubled. David looked at the device. First Hunter's words appeared as glowing text. The Karathi had explained that their communication was partially telepathic, translated into whatever form the receiver could understand. My people will come with weapons, David said. They'll see you as a threat. We are a threat, First Hunter replied. We have ended ships before, vessels that try to capture us. David's stomach twisted. Then we need to make sure they don't try. How? We have met hundreds of species. All wanted to cage us or harvest us. The text pulsed with emotion. Our fur contains quantum crystalline structures, valuable to technology makers. Our young sell for fortunes on black markets. We learned long ago that trust brings only pain. Then why trust me? The hologram showed a new series of symbols that the translator struggled with before settling on words. Because you had nothing to gain. You were alone, cold, using your own heat to warm our young when you could have let them die. This pattern is not logical for a species seeking profit. David thought about how to explain. He pulled up images from his personal files. Pictures of Earth's Arctic regions. His childhood home. His father teaching him to check on neighbors during storms. Where I come from, David said, the cold kills fast. We learned that helping each other isn't about profit. It's about survival. You don't ask questions when someone needs help. You just act. First Hunter studied the images. Your world is ice. Parts of it. but we also have warmth. Deserts, jungles, oceans. We're adaptable. Adaptable. The word hung in the hologram. We too were adaptable once. We had a world, warm and cold regions both. Then the star changed. Our world froze. We learned to survive the ice, but we lost our home. David felt a pang of recognition. You're nomads. Yes. For 300 cycles we have wandered. We found ice moons and frozen worlds. We survived, but we never settled, never trusted others enough to stop moving. Over the next hours, First Hunter shared more. The Karathi had encountered dozens of spacefaring species. Each meeting followed the same pattern. Initial curiosity, then exploitation attempts. Ships trying to capture pups. Corporations offering fake partnerships that were really traps. Pirates attacking packs for their valuable fur. We became ghosts, First Hunter explained. Moving through the void. Avoiding contact. Teaching our young that all Star Walkers are enemies. But you came here, David said. You surrounded my habitat. You could have just taken north and south and left. The translator paused longer than usual. You interest us. We watched your kind for 2 cycles before choosing this test. Test. We left the pups near your location deliberately. We needed to know if any Starwalker species could see them as more than resources. You were alone. No one watching. No one to impress. Yet you risked yourself immediately. First Hunter's massive head appeared in the window. This suggested something different about humans. David felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. You risked their lives for a test. They were not in danger. We monitored from close range. If you had not found them, we would have retrieved them. But we needed to see your choice. Would you help? Ignore? Exploit? That's a hell of a gamble. These are desperate times. The galaxy grows more crowded, more violent. We cannot run forever. Our pups deserve better than endless flight. The text shimmered. We hope to find one species capable of seeing beyond profit. One species that might understand pack bonds. David looked down at north and south. They'd curled around each other in sleep, their crystalline fur glowing softly. And you think humans might be that species? Your action suggests possibility. But one human is not all humans. Your kind is coming with weapons. This will tell us the truth. The weight of that statement settled on David's shoulders. He wasn't just representing himself anymore. He was representing humanity's character to a species that had been hurt over and over by the galactic community. I need to show them what I've seen, David said. I need to prove you're not a threat. But we are a threat, First Hunter insisted. To those who would harm us, we are very dangerous. Now I need to show them there's no reason to harm you. David started pacing. I need to make them see what I see. Partners, not problems. And if they cannot see this, David met First Hunter's gaze through the window. Then I stand between you and them. Whatever it takes. The translator went silent. David could see movement among the Karathi outside. They were communicating, their fur flickering with patterns he was beginning to recognize as their form of rapid conversation. Finally, text appeared again. No Starwalker has offered to defend us before. Most try to control us. You offer to protect us. This is backwards. Maybe that's the point, David said. Maybe we've been doing first contact wrong this whole time. North woke up and patted over to David. The young Karathi pressed against his leg, looking up with those intelligent violet eyes. South joined moments later. They bonded with him in just 2 days. They trusted him completely. Teach us about your people, First Hunter said. We have 3 days. Help us understand if humans are different. If you fail, we disappear. If you succeed, perhaps the Karathi finally find allies. David looked at the countdown timer. 70 hours remaining. Then we'd better get started. The ship appeared in orbit exactly on schedule. Aurora's Edge, corporate security vessel, bristling with weapons and carrying 50 armed personnel. David watched it through his repaired scanner with a sinking feeling in his gut. He'd spent 3 days teaching First Hunter about humanity. Now he'd see if any of it mattered. They are here, First Hunter said through the translator. The Karathi pack had pulled back from the habitat, forming a loose perimeter half a kilometer away. They looked like they were giving space, but David knew better. They were preparing for a fight. The communication channel crackled to life. Arcturus, 7 Mining Station. This is Captain Richard Wilson of Aurora's Edge. We're picking up massive life form readings around your position. Report your status immediately. David took a breath. Captain Wilson, this is David Chun. I'm unharmed and in no danger. The life forms are peaceful. I repeat, they are peaceful. Silence. Then, Chun, we have orders to evacuate you and neutralize any potential threats. Prepare for extraction. Negative, Captain. I'm not evacuating. And if you come down here with weapons charged, you'll start a war. Chun, you're not thinking clearly. Those things could be affecting your judgment. We're coming to get you. David looked at First Hunter through the window. The massive Karathi's fur had darkened, a sign of stress David had learned to recognize. Captain, I need you to hold position. Give me a chance to explain. You have 5 minutes while we prep the dropship. David worked fast. He set up a live feed from his cameras, streaming directly to Aurora's Edge and corporate headquarters back home. His hands shook as he adjusted the angles. This had to work. He brought North and South in a frame. They sat calmly beside him, their crystalline fur catching the light. I'm broadcasting to everyone who can hear this, David said. 3 days ago, I found these two in a crashed escape pod. They were dying. I saved them. Their family came looking for them. That's what you're seeing out there. A rescue party. A family that traveled across space to find their children. He pulled up the recordings he'd made. First Hunter speaking through the translator. Karathi sharing their history. Images of pack life, of their lost homeworld, of 300 years running from species that only saw them as resources. They have quantum crystalline fur worth a fortune. Their young sell on black markets. Every species they've met has tried to exploit them. They're here because I did something radical. I helped without expecting anything in return. I gave their children back, and that confused them so much they had to investigate. David's voice grew stronger. We have a choice right now. We can be like every other species they've met. We can see them as threats or resources. Or we can be different. We can be better. The channel stayed silent. David watched the scanner. The dropship was launching from Aurora's Edge. Captain Wilson, I'm asking you to land without weapons armed. Meet with us. Talk before you shoot. And if we don't, Wilson's voice was hard. First Hunter moved closer to the window. David saw other Karathi closing their perimeter. They weren't running. They were preparing to defend themselves. Then I'm staying here, David said. Whatever happens, I'm with them. Chun, that's insane. You don't know these creatures anything. You're right. I don't know them. But that's exactly why this matters. David looked directly into the camera. I helped because it was right. Not because I had to. Not because of profit or duty. Because leaving those pups to die would have been wrong. If humanity can't understand that, then maybe the Karathi are right not to trust us. His broadcast was being watched by thousands now. The company network, the security team, people across human space who'd heard about the strange situation on Arcturus 7. Messages started flooding in. Some call him a traitor. Others called him a hero. Most were just confused. Then a new voice cut through the chatter. This is Dr. Sarah Williams, xenobiology specialist. I'm requesting permission to land separately from a security team. Captain Wilson responded immediately. Dr. Williams, this is a security situation. This is a first contact situation, Captain, and we're about to ruin it. Williams sounded angry. I've been monitoring the feeds. Mr. Chun is right. We have a chance here to make an ally instead of an enemy. I'm coming down whether you approve or not. David felt a surge of hope. He wasn't alone in this. The dropship entered atmosphere. David could see it on the scanner, coming in fast. Too fast. Weapons charged. This was an assault insertion, not a peaceful landing. First Hunter, David said urgently, tell your pack to hold position. Don't attack unless they fire first. They're showing threat. First Hunter replied. We will defend. I know, but give them a chance. Please. The Karathi leader was silent for a long moment. Then, for you, human David, we wait. But if they harm our young, we answer. North and South pressed against David's legs. They could sense the tension. Their fur glowed brighter, a defensive response. The dropship landed 200 meters from the habitat, snow and ice blasting in all directions. The ramp dropped, and 12 soldiers emerged, weapons raised. Behind them, a smaller shuttle touched down. Dr. Williams stepped out, unarmed. Captain Wilson's voice boomed across the ice through external speakers. Mr. Chun, exit the habitat immediately. Bring the creatures if you can control them. No sudden movements. David sealed his suit. This is it, he told North and South. Time to show them what you really are. He opened the airlock. The Karathi pack tensed. The soldiers tensed. Dr. Williams walked forward alone, putting herself between the two groups. Everyone calm down, she said. We're going to talk. Like civilized beings. All of us. First hunter emerged from the pack, massive and imposing. Several soldiers adjusted their aim. David rushed forward, positioning himself directly in the line of fire. You'll have to shoot through me first, he said. Captain Wilson appeared from behind his soldiers, studying the situation. His eyes moved from David to the Karathi to Dr. Williams. Lower your weapons, he ordered finally. Sir, one soldier questioned. I said lower them. We talk first. Wilson looked at First Hunter. Can that thing understand me? That thing, David said sharply, is First Hunter, leader of the Karathi. And yes, he understands you perfectly. The translator projected First Hunter's words into the air for everyone to see. We mean no harm unless harmed. We came for our young. This human returned them freely. This is unprecedented in our experience. Wilson stared at the glowing text. You're intelligent. Fully intelligent. Did you think otherwise? I thought you were animals. We thought humans were monsters, First Hunter replied. Your David Chun suggests we were both wrong. Dr. Williams set up a neutral meeting area between the habitat and the ships. A simple tent with heaters, translation equipment, and recording devices. David sat with First Hunter on one side. Captain Wilson and Williams sat opposite. Soldiers maintained a perimeter, but weapons stayed lowered. The Karathi pack watched from a distance, their crystalline fur creating patterns of light across the ice. Let me be clear, Wilson said, his hands flat on the table. Corporate wants this situation contained. They're worried about liability, about unknown alien threats, about legal complications with first contact protocols. They're worried about missing a profit opportunity, Williams corrected. The moment they saw recordings of quantum crystalline fur, they started calculating market value. First Hunter's text appeared in the share hologram. As we expected, every species sees us as resources first, beings second. Not every species, David said. Not everyone. Wilson rubbed his face. He looked tired. Look, I'm a soldier. I follow orders. But I also have eyes. I've been watching the feeds. Those pups trust you completely, Chun. That kind of bond doesn't form between a person and an animal. It forms between people. We are people, First Hunter said. We have culture, history, art. We raise our young with care. We mourn our dead. We remember those who wronged us, and we never forget kindness. Williams leaned forward, her eyes bright with scientific curiosity. Tell us about your homeworld, your culture. Help us understand. For the next hour, First Hunter shared the story of the Karathi. Their world had been called Frostbirth, a planet of ice and fire where volcanic vents created pockets of warmth and frozen seas. They'd built a civilization around those vents, developing technology that worked with extreme temperatures. They'd been preparing to explore space when their star began to die. We evacuated in waves, First Hunter explained. Thousands of ships. Most of our people scattered across the galaxy, looking for new worlds. My pack is one of hundreds still searching. We've found frozen moons, dead worlds, places we can survive but never truly live. And everywhere you went, you were hunted, Williams said softly. Yes, our first contact was with traders who seemed friendly. They learned about our young, about our fur. Within a cycle, pirates attacked our ships. We lost 17 pups that year, sold to collectors who wanted exotic pets. The text pulsed with old pain. We learned to avoid everyone, to travel in armed packs, to trust no one. David watched Wilson's expression change. The captain was understanding what David had learned over 3 days. The Karathi weren't threats. They were refugees, survivors protecting themselves from a hostile galaxy. Why test us? Wilson asked. Why risk your pups? Because we are tired, First Hunter said simply. Tired of running. Tired of teaching our children to fear everything. We needed to know if any species could be different, if any could see us as equals. Williams pulled up data on her tablet. I've been researching human first contact history. It's not pretty. We've made mistakes, exploitation, cultural damage. But we've also learned. We have treaties with 16 alien species now. Real partnerships, not colonial relationships. 16 successes out of how many attempts? First Hunter asked. Williams grimaced. 27. So you fail more than you succeed. Yes, but we keep trying to do better. That's worth something, isn't it? First Hunter was quiet. David could see the Karathi leader thinking, weighing centuries of bad experiences against the possibility of something different. Wilson spoke up. What do you want? Long term, what would make you stop running? Safe places for our packs. Freedom to live without fear of capture. Recognition as equals, not resources. Partnerships where we choose our involvement. First Hunter paused. We do not want charity. We offer value. We know ice worlds better than any species. We can navigate conditions that kill others. Our pack coordination could help with rescue operations. We have knowledge of uncharted territories. You're describing a mutual benefit arrangement, Wilson said. We're describing what should be obvious. Cooperation serves both sides better than exploitation. David watched the two leaders size each other up. Wilson represented human authority, corporate interests, and military power. First Hunter represented a species that had been hurt too many times. Both were cautious. Both had reasons to distrust. I can't make promises for my entire species, Wilson said finally. But I can report what I've seen. I can recommend formal first contact protocols instead of a security response. I can testify that you showed restraint and intelligence. Words are cheap, First Hunter replied. So are actions without follow-through, Wilson countered. But they're a start. What else do you want from us? First Hunter looked at David. We want humans like this one. Those who help without asking the price first. Those who see our young as children, not commodities. William smiled. There are more like him. Not enough, maybe, but more than you think. North and South had been lying quietly near David throughout the meeting. Now South stood and walked to Wilson. The captain tensed. The young Karathi sniffed his hand, then pressed its head against his palm. Wilson's stern expression cracked. He touched the pup's crystalline fur gently. It's warm, he said, surprised. I expected it to be cold. They're alive, David said. That's the whole point. They're not resources or threats. They're alive. South returned to David, and North approached Williams. She laughed with delight as the pup climbed into her lap. They're children, she said. How did anyone ever mistake them for animals? Fear, First Hunter said. Fear makes people see monsters everywhere. Wilson stood. I need to report to corporate. They're not going to like what I have to say, but I'm done pretending this is a security situation. This is diplomacy. Dr. Williams, your lead on this now. Agreed, Williams said. First Hunter, will you and your pack stay? Give us a chance to prove we're serious about a real partnership. The translator went quiet for a long moment. David held his breath. Everything balanced on this decision. We will stay, First Hunter finally said. For one cycle, 1 year by your counting. We will learn if humans keep their words. If you fail us like others did, we leave and never return. If you succeed, perhaps the Karathi finally find home. David felt tension drain from his shoulders. Thank you. Do not thank us yet, David Shun. We have not succeeded. We have only agreed to try. But as David looked around at Williams's excited expression, Wilson's thoughtful acceptance, and North and South playing together in the snow, he thought they had a real chance. For months passed on Arcturus 7. The mining station transformed into something nobody had planned. The original habitat expanded with modular additions. Equipment sheds became meeting spaces. The frozen landscape filled with both human structures and Karathi snow dens that glowed from within with their crystalline presence. David walked through the compound, checking thermal readings. North and South followed him everywhere now, grown larger but still playful. They'd learned to understand basic human speech, responding to commands and questions with increasing sophistication. Other young Karathi played with human workers during off hours. The older generation watched these friendships with cautious hope. "Morning, David," called out Roberts, one of the newer arrivals. She was a mining engineer who'd volunteered to transfer after hearing about the project. "First Hunter wants to show you something at the North Perimeter." David found the Karathi leader examining a geological scanner, his massive form hunched over the device with surprising delicacy. Several human technicians worked alongside Karathi adults, sharing data and techniques. "We found something," First Hunter said through the translator. "A deposit 3 kilometers down. Rare metals. Enough to fund your operations for decades." "You didn't have to tell us," David said. "Partnership means sharing benefits. Your people provided shelter and supplies. We provide knowledge. This is balance." Dr. Williams emerged from the research lab, tablet in hand and grinning. "The Galactic Council wants to send observers. 3 different species have formally requested to study our partnership model. We're becoming famous." David groaned. "Famous isn't always good. In this case, it is." The Karathi story is spreading. Other nomadic species are reaching out, asking if humans would welcome them too. Williams sat on a supply crate, her breath steaming in the cold. "David, do you understand what you started? You changed first contact protocols for the entire human sphere. Corporate is rewriting policy based on what happened here. One person helping 2 lost pups changed all that. One person choosing compassion over profit, yes." Williams watched north and south playing with a human child, the daughter of one of the workers. "You showed that immediate kindness works better than calculated exploitation. It's such a simple concept, but apparently revolutionary." First Hunter made a sound that David had learned was Karathi laughter. "Humans are strange. You know the right thing to do, yet you must be reminded to do it. We're working on that." David admitted that a shuttle descended from orbit, kicking up snow. This one carried supplies and 6 new families volunteering for the expanded outpost. Humans and Karathi worked together to guide it down, their coordination smooth from months of practice. "More Starwalkers who want to live with ice hunters," First Hunter observed. "Your young ones especially adapt quickly." It was true. Human children and Karathi pups formed bonds that amazed both species. They taught each other games, shared food, and developed a mixed communication style of words and gestures that worked better than any translator. Evening fell, and the aurora above Arcturus 7 painted the sky in brilliant colors. David stood at the observation point where this all began, the place where he'd first seen hundreds of Karathi filling the horizon. Now, those same Karathi moved freely through the compound, working and living alongside humans. North and South joined him, pressing against his legs. They were nearly full-grown now, though they'd never lose the bond formed when he'd saved them from freezing. First Hunter approached, moving with a fluid grace that still amazed David. "I have news," the Karathi leader said. 4 more packs contacted us. They want to come here, to see if this partnership is real or if we have been deceived. "How do you feel about that?" David asked, uncertain, hopeful, terrified. First Hunter's fur shifted through colors that indicated complex emotions. "We have been alone so long. The idea of community again is both desired and frightening. We'll make room. Whatever you need." "You say this easily. Do you understand the implications? If this succeeds, hundreds of Karathi will come. Thousands perhaps. Your quiet mining operation becomes a major settlement." David smiled. "Good. The galaxy could use more places where different species actually work together instead of just tolerating each other." Williams joined them at the observation point. Corporate approved the expansion. They're sending construction equipment and more personnel. The Council is designating Arcturus 7 as an official integration zone. "We're making history. We're just living," David said. "Working together, helping each other survive. That's the history part," Williams replied, making the revolutionaries seem ordinary. A young Karathi approached, one David recognized as North's sibling from another litter. The youngster carried something in its mouth and deposited it at David's feet. A crystal formation naturally formed but beautiful. Gift, First Hunter translated. She thanks you for teaching her to fix the heating systems. Says you're a good pack teacher. David picked up the crystal carefully. Tell her I said thank you, and that she's a fast learner. The young Karathi's fur brightened with pleasure before she bounded away to rejoin her friends. They adore you, First Hunter observed. All the young ones. You saved North and South, but you taught all of them that humans could be trusted. I just treated them like people, David said. Exactly. First Hunter's massive head turned toward the horizon where more lights were appearing. Another Karathi pack, arriving to see the impossible partnership for themselves. You saw people when others saw resources. You saw children when others saw commodities. This simple sight changed everything. The new pack approached slowly, cautiously. David could see their uncertainty in the way they moved. They'd been hurt before. They had every reason to distrust. But North and South ran to meet them, glowing with excitement. Other young Karathi joined them. Human children followed, calling out greetings. The nervous pack saw all of this, saw humans and Karathi mixing freely, and their crystalline fur began to brighten. They're seeing hope, Williams whispered. They're seeing what could be normal, David corrected. If we just remember to be decent to each other. First Hunter made that laughing sound again. You make it sound simple. It is simple, David said. It's just not easy. He looked out across the compound that had grown from a single habitat. Humans and Karathi worked under the Aurora's light, building something new together. Not perfect. There were still arguments, misunderstandings, and moments of frustration. But they were trying. North and South returned with several newcomers, introducing them to their human friend. David knelt and greeted each one, treating them with the same respect and gentleness he'd shown that frozen night 4 months ago. What happens now? Williams asked. David stood, watching more lights appear on the horizon. More packs coming. More chances to prove that cooperation could work. Now we keep going, he said. We keep choosing compassion. We keep seeing people instead of resources. We keep remembering that sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness. First Hunter's translator glowed with a final message. When you saved our young, you saved more than 2 lives. You saved the possibility of trust. In a galaxy that often forgets compassion, you reminded us it still exists. For this, the Karathi will remember David Shun, the human who saw frozen pups and thought only of helping them survive. The aurora shifted overhead, bathing everything in light. David smiled, watching North and South play with the newcomers. This was just the beginning. More species would come. More partnerships would form. More chances to prove that the galaxy could be better. All because one person chose to help when no one was watching.